Are you ready to stop riding the emotional elevator of life? Are you ready to learn how to elevate your emotions that keep you psychologically traumatized or in an addictive behavior? You are in the right place. Here is your host, Sandee Byrd, trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach of the Emotional Elevator Show.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. I am Sandee Byrd. You are listening to Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network. And I'm going to just let you know, because this was a question a couple of weeks ago. And if you're watching me, or this is the first time you're watching me, this magic wand is my magic wand for coaching. What is this magic wand? So if I was coaching you and I asked you, if this was a magic wand, what would you most like to change? And how would you like to change that about yourself? So that's what this wand represents, is that I am a self-development coach. I'm also a trauma coach, and I am a midlife discovery coach. Next week, you'll want to stay tuned because there's a little bit of announcement I'm going to make on my next show on another area that I've been asked to kind of jump into. But you're going to have to wait, so you're going to have to listen or watch me next week to find out, because some things have changed in my life this past week that have just shifted me, kind of moved a little bit. I got shifted. But what does it mean when I say I'm a self-development coach or a midlife discovery coach? What I basically do is work with you in a partnership to figure it out. Do you know your purpose in life? Do you know what your values are? Not the values you were raised with that you think are yours, but your own values. How you feel about yourself. What is it about you on surface level that you just want to change? Maybe you need someone to help you learn how to boost your confidence. Maybe you need to learn, maybe you need someone to help you write that stellar resume or land that job. Be confident when you go into a room. That's what kind of coach I am. And when I am an expert in all these fields, because these are all the things that I myself have gone through and have been challenged with in my own life. So when I became a coach, I've dabbled here and there in some things, and I realized trauma will always be my true, one of my true coach callings, because there will be an announcement next week. But one of my coaching is trauma, because I have gone through tremendous trauma in my life. And if it wasn't for having a coach, but also someone who can go deep with you and bring out that confidence that you have, because one thing I've learned through my trauma is I am a warrior from that. I go out in this world and I conquer things. I've had great jobs, great relationships, because I did not let that bury me. I'm also a coach that is going to be authentic with you. And if I feel I am not the right person for you, I'm going to let you know. Also, if I feel like you have too deep rooted, seated trauma, I'm going to suggest maybe therapy. But I would love to work with you on coaching. Coming fall, I probably will start another self class. But that's what my coaching is. It's all about figuring out who you are, because a lot of us don't really know who we are. And that's where midlife now comes into with my coaching, midlife discovery coach, because when you end up being an empty nester, or you go through that divorce midlife, or you lose loved ones in midlife, and you want to rediscover who you are, because some people go from being an empty nester of children, which I did, to being a caregiver, to being a provider for an elderly parent. And that is a transition in life that a lot of women, people struggle with. So I want to help you regain who it is. Maybe figure out, if you become that empty nester, who is it you really want to be, or who you really want to be. Because I'm 55. I still could have 15 more years to go. Do I want to continue being that same person that's known as mom, wife? No. I'm now in that transition of I am Sandee. I'm redefining who I am, what I want, and figuring out that my purpose in life has been served, but now I want to serve it in a coaching platform. So that's about me, Sandee. And if you ever want to reach out to me or find me on social media, it is Sandee. If you're not watching me, but you've tuned into me, it's Sandee with two E's, and it's Byrd with a Y, Byrd. So you can always reach out to me on social media. If ever you do that, my middle name is that Steenstra. So if you look up Sandee with the two E's Byrd, you're probably going to see a Steenstra middle name, which is my maiden name. That is me as well. But I do have an email at sandee@emotionalelevator.com or Sandee Byrd, B-Y-R-D coach at gmail.com. Also go to my website, but like I keep telling people, that website is going to change, and it's going to be a drastic change because as I've elevated my emotions, so has my website. It's time to evolve into the person I am still becoming because I'm still becoming a person, a different person. I'm reevaluating my life every day, every year, every moment as things happen in it that I want to reevaluate myself. So now that I've talked to you about me, now let's dive into enabling. Is enabling good or bad? Can it be both? So I'm going to first read off the definition of enabling, and it is over here, so I'm kind of looking to my side. Enabling gives someone or something the authority or means to do something. That's the first one. Make possible. Now, there is one, make a device or system operational, activated. Now, they say that that third one, make a device or system operational, activated, is more for computers and stuff, but it's not if you think about it. Your brain is your computer of your body. So you can enable that and activate it. So let me basically read off what the show is about tonight. Can enabling be both good and bad? What exactly is enabling? How do you know if you are enabling someone? If you are a parent, spouse, friend, what does enabling look like and why do we do it? Can you enable someone for the right reasons? Is someone enabling you? Do you know the difference between good and bad enabling? That's what tonight's show is. So I've read you the definition of enabling. Now you know what enabling is, but we're going to kind of get into that nitty gritty of enabling. Like, why do we sometimes enable people? Why do we allow people to enable us? And that's what it is. So when you enable someone, this is a lot, and we don't even realize we're doing it. When we're accepting of someone's behavior that we're not necessarily like or proud of or even want to be around, but we accept it and or we laugh about if it's a behavior thing and we're just like, oh, it's just them. That's enabling someone. A lot of times as parents, I was a child that enabled an alcoholic mother. Um, and what I mean by enabling her was I made clear decisions that if you continue to drink, you will not be seeing my children. She saw my children. Because if I needed a babysitter or she stepped right in when I, had to go to work or there was an emergency, I was enabling her. Because what was I doing? I was giving her the authority to do that behavior. And as parents, we do that a lot with our children, and especially when sometimes they become adult children. I worked with a client that did enable behavior that she did not like of a child. She was enabling that child to treat her. She would come to me and tell me, I don't like this child because they're treating me like this, this, and this. Well, what are you doing about it? What steps are you taking? Well, I'm afraid if I say something, they're not going to love me. Well, that is enabling. But think about that. Think about that whole statement. Why are you allowing the enabling? Because you're afraid of something that has been activated within you. If I don't go along with this behavior, they're not going to love me. If I don't go along with this behavior, they're not going to like me. That's enabling. That very much is enabling. So there is a lot enabling that we do. I can say as a child of a parent that was an alcoholic, being a parent myself and feeling guilt around, excuse me, guilt around working so much to provide for my children that I did enable them. And the behaviors that I did enable weren't necessarily behaviors with my children. It was giving them something for love. That was enabling, allowing behaviors, allowing them to speak to me a way that was not, and my children really didn't do that as much, but if I was allowing them to speak to me in a way I did not want them to speak, that is enabling. Because when you ask somebody, why do you do that for them? And they make up all these excuses, that's enabling. Because sometimes as parents or as a child, we don't want to, I just hit my wand, excuse me for that. We don't want to face maybe the demons that we feel in us. So I'm just going to go along with that behavior or that addiction because then they'll love me, or I'll be here if something happens, or I'll be around them if something happens. That is enabling. And if you continue to enable, you're basically saying the behavior is okay or the addiction is okay, and accepting of it because I need you in my life. Need you is the key word here. So that is a lot about what the downside of enabling is. The bad side of enabling is when your child has an addiction, or a parent has an addiction, and you give them the money when they don't have money because of the addiction. That is enabling. And if you ask, why are you giving them the money? Well, they needed the money because they need a place to live. Or they needed the money because I just feel like I need to give it to them because I'm their parent. That's enabling that. And we are not doing due service to them or ourselves. And it's the same thing as when, as teenage parents, I've worked with a client who had a teenage parent, who was a teenage parent, who had a teenager, and they would always tell me, well, such and such has my car. And I'm like, well, why did you give them your car? I thought they were grounded. Well, they wanted to go here. And, I don't want to be that bad parent. And a lot of us parents, myself included, and my clients who have been parents who we've dabbled down in on enabling, it's because of divorce, that big D word. Sometimes we feel like, well, if I don't give in to them, the other parent will. And I want to be the cool parent, not the bad parent. I want to be the good cop, not the bad cop. And the problem is then we're enabling a behavior that's not doing any bit of good. So think about that. If you're listening to me and you have children, or maybe even you're a young adult and you have a parent and they have an addiction or they have something, a behavior that you are not, that just doesn't feel right to you, and you're accepting of it. Like a parent that just cut you down or cut your spouse down in front of you, and you just laugh it off and go, ah, ha, 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 ha. You're enabling a behavior because you're afraid of something within yourself. And that's the big thing with enabling, is a lot of people think it's just about, well, I'm just giving it to them. But what is it that's inside you that's making you feel the need to give to them? What is it that you're lacking within yourself that you're giving to them? Now, there is a positive side to enabling. So don't sit there and go, well, I'm helping this person out because, like I'm allowing my child to move in with me so that they can buy land or build a house. That's different. But if they move in your house and start doing things you don't like and you don't speak up because, oh, they're only going to be here maybe a year and I don't want them, I don't want to rock the boat. Well, then you are enabling. But if it's providing for your child, a parent, somebody, because they're in a need and there's no reason for you to have an attachment to their need, that's not enabling. That's a good form of like enabling. So guess what? It is time for our first break already. And tonight, thank you for joining me on Emotional Elevator on Inspired Choices Network. This is Sandee Byrd with 2 E's, BYRD. And you can find me, like I said, on social media, LinkedIn, many platforms. And please, if you're listening to me and you like my show, follow me, like it. If you're Apple, like it, because it helps not only me, but all the other hosts here on Inspired Choices Network. So we're going to go to that first break, and I'll be right back.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back. Sorry, I got a little bit of a frog in my throat today. I'm talking all about enabling. But you're listening to Sandee Byrd on Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network. And like I said before the break, just go ahead, like and subscribe if you like what I'm saying. But I started off with, talking a little bit about my coaching, and that's why enabling is a topic for me, because I was an enabler of an alcoholic mother. I did enable some kind of behaviors with my own children. But I work with clients on seeing that they're enabling. They're enabling a child or a parent or a spouse for bad behaviors. And when I say bad behaviors, it's behaviors that are not healthy in that relationship. So when I talk about like enabling a child, and it's not necessarily, an addiction type of enabling where they're giving them money or providing them with the alcohol if they're an alcoholic, but making, and I don't want to use the word threats, but making stern agreements with the other person and then giving in. That's also a form of enabling. Because if you, boundaries, that's the word I was looking for. Sorry, got a frog in my throat tonight. Boundaries. When you set those healthy boundaries and you give in because of a scarcity within yourself, that's enabling. So think about this. You don't like the way your spouse, your child, a boss even speaks to you. And you accept it and you don't speak up and you don't say, you know what, that really bothers me when you say blah, 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 blah. Or it bothers me when you do this. That's enabling a behavior because the second definition I said was make possible. You are making that behavior to them seem possible, seem like you're giving them authority to speak to you that way. And by not speaking up for yourself, you're enabling them to continue to treat you the way they feel you want to be treated when you don't want to be treated. I've done that myself with other people where I did not realize that I was affecting them with something I would say. And by them not speaking up about it, they're enabling that behavior in me. And that is this is another one of the topics with coaching with individuals is, sorry, got a frog in my throat or I've got something going on. But enabling them in a sense is when they sit down and go, I really think about this and I don't feel this when I'm around, let's say it's a parent. I don't feel like respected when I'm around my child. Well, what do you mean by that? And then they say, well, this is the way they talk to me. Well, what do you do when they talk to you? Oh, well, I don't really do anything. Well, why don't you do anything? Well, because I'm afraid if I say something, they're not going to love me or they're not going to want to be around me. That's enabling a bad behavior. So think about that. When you enable somebody, you're accepting that behavior from them. And if it's activating something within you that makes you icky or makes you feel a certain way, you're enabling that behavior for them. And a lot of us do that. And we sometimes don't consciously know that we are enabling others. And the biggest enabling is not just about enabling that behavior, but when there are adult children's being allowed to manipulate, and I'm using that good word, manipulate, their parents into providing everything for them. You're not giving them ability to grow, which in turn is not giving you the ability to grow within you. And that's a big thing. You're enabling their bad behavior to continue your unwanted behavior. So it's like two negatives in that situation don't equal a positive. So think about that when it comes to enabling. But sometimes enabling can be something you do with yourself as well. When it comes to forms of addiction and going and getting something, you're enabling that bad behavior within yourself. Let's say emotional eating. Going out and buying the ice cream, you're enabling that emotional eating. If that is your weakness, that's enabling. Yes, you might have a thought process in there that's just a little construed, so you're doing it, but you're enabling yourself. When you don't feel worthy or valued, so you don't put yourself out there, that's enabling yourself in a bad way because you're accepting that behavior, you're accepting that something within yourself. Accepting a life of blah, and you want this life of, that's enabling because you're accepting it. You're giving the authority to the thoughts you have in your mind. So you're enabling yourself. And I can tell you, I'm an expert on that. Some of my clients are experts on enabling their mind to control themselves because they're giving those false talk to themselves. And that's enabling that repetition of, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to become a self-development coach, is because sometimes it's those enabling thoughts that we have that keep us where we are. So think about that. Do you enable yourself to keep you where you're at? Do you never risk it and go for that promotion or that job? Or if you've gone through a divorce midlife and you won't go out with anyone because I just can't do it. I'm not good enough. You're enabling that behavior. You're enabling that self-talk to yourself. So that is what enabling in the bad sense is. It's allowing those conversations with yourself. And like I said, when it comes to other people, when you allow even them to speak to you in a way that is not the way you want to be spoken to, whether it be a boss, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a child or a parent, you're enabling that behavior because you're allowing it. You're giving that behavior. And think about yourself too. You're giving that self-doubt talk authority to do something. So when we do speak in self-talk in a negative way, we're enabling it because we're allowing it. We're giving it the authority that it wants. So do you enable yourself? Do you enable your conversations with yourself? Is there anyone in your life right now that as you've listened to me that you can say you've been enabling? Because a lot of people think enabling is just around like addiction. Oh, well, I gave my son the money because, and they're an alcoholic. Or like I said with my mother, how I enabled her is because I set boundaries. But when I allowed her to break, or I allowed those boundaries to be broken, I was enabling her behavior. I was accepting of it. I gave her alcoholism authority over me. Now, when it comes to being in abusive relationships, I enabled some of those people because I gave their abuse authority and I enabled them to continue to abuse me. And when I sit down with clients and the first thing they say is, I just can't get this cycle of thoughts out of my head. Okay, you're enabling those thoughts. I mean, that's not what enabling is. Yeah, it is. Because you're giving those thoughts authority. And how do you stop that? How do you stop giving those thoughts, enabling your thoughts? How do you stop that? That's a question for you to answer to me. Because there's many tools out there that you can. Number one, the first tool I tell my clients is recognize. Recognize why you're giving yourself those thoughts. Why are those thoughts coming through for you? Why are you enabling that behavior? You're making it possible. That is the second definition of enabling. And you're activating it. That's supposed to be just for computers, but no. When we activate those thoughts, that's enabling ourselves, our negative self-talk. So it is almost time for a second break. But while we're at break, you can always reach out to me. You can come here on this chat room and say, you know what, you're making sense. You don't make sense. I want to know more about this. Or if you want to reach out to me at Sandee@emotionalelevator.com. But like I say, you get more of a rapid response. I love that rapid response at Sandee Byrd, that's two E's, Sandee, D-E-E, Byrd, B-Y-R-D, at Gmail, Sandee Byrd Coach at gmail.com, because that is my business email. Or you can reach out to me on any social media platform. And like I said, it's Sandee with two E's, Byrd, B-Y-R-D, but social media, you'll see Steenstra in the middle there because that still is part of my name and it is my maiden name, Steenstra. So my name is Sandee Steenstra Byrd, but I just enjoy talking about this topic, enabling, and that is probably one of the first things I kind of dive in with a lot of my clients is, what are you enabling in your life? And how can we stop the enabling? And even if it's with yourself. But it is time for our second break, and you're listening to me here on Emotional Elevator on the Inspired Choices Network.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Well, welcome back. You're listening to Sandee Byrd on the Emotional Elevator on Inspired Choices Network, and I'm holding my magic wand. So I want everyone to close their eyes, and this is my magic wand, and I'm going to grant you a wish. Who is it that you enable, whether it be yourself and your thoughts or someone you enable? And what steps can you take to break that enabling? You can write that down. You can think about that, because this is a magic wand, and you have the power within you to break enabling steps. You have the power. It's a little bit harder if it's yourself and it's your thoughts and you enable those negative thoughts. But come over here to the bright side with Sandee Byrd, and we will start working on getting you from enabling those thoughts. Doesn't mean that poof, it's going to be gone, but you're going to be able to identify when you're enabling others, or you'll be able to identify whether you're enabling yourself to have those thoughts, how to recognize it, and what steps you can make to break those. What was I going to say? Break those enabling habits. Break those habits. That's the word I was looking for. Tonight I'm kind of struggling. Got a frog in my throat. But now we're going to dive a little bit into, we did a lot about the negative or the bad enabling, kind of the bad enabling when we allow those thoughts to keep creeping in and we enable them, or when we enable someone because we don't like their behavior, but we're accepting of it because we're afraid of something within ourselves, whether we're afraid that they're not going to love us, or afraid they're not going to like us if they're friends, or we're afraid if we speak up to our boss about the way they speak to us that we're going to lose our job. That's bad enabling. Now, can enabling be good? Yes, it can. Because the definition is giving something or someone authority or means to do something. Make possible. So, yes, enabling can be positive. You can have that positive thought and keep coming in your head, and you want to keep hearing it, so you enable it to keep coming. That's good enabling. You can enable somebody to make the appropriate decisions, to make the positive decisions, to enable them in that positive behavior. Wow. You can have good enabling. So when I think about that, and I've worked with clients and I've had friends and even myself being in this midlife journey. I'm calling it a journey. And I decided to rediscover who I was. And during that rediscovery, I decided, you know what? I'm going to help other women in their 50s decide to become, because 50 is the new 30. I am really hitting this mic. 50 is the new 30. My mother-in-law lived to be 100 and a half. Yes, she passed away. I mentioned her a lot on here. I'll talk more about it next week in a grieving show. But I don't even know where I was going with that. Oh, I'm 50. Sorry. Lost train of thought thinking about that. But I'm 55, knowing my mother-in-law lived to be 100 and a half. That gives me 40 years. 40, 50 years. 40, whatever, 45 years. 45 and a half years left. And I wanted to recreate myself because I had been enabling, there's that bad enabling. I was enabling those bad thoughts to keep me grounded, to keep me safe, to keep me standard. I'm going to use that word standard, to keep me in the life that was not me. Because I was enabling that thought that you can't do this, you can't do that. You can't change the way you think about yourself. I was enabling those thoughts until one day I said, you know what? I can. I have the power within me to change who I am. So when I started going on that journey and really diving into it with coaching and therapy, and I'm changing and evolving, I was like, I want to take other women on this journey. Whether you're in midlife, whether you're wherever you are in your life, I want to take other, not just women, but men, anyone who wants to go on this journey and recreate. That's positive enabling. I chose to start rewiring what I was saying to myself and enable those positive thoughts. But being with a very devoted husband, he has enabled me because he's making this possible by saying, you know what? Step away from this. Start adventuring into this. I see your potential. I'm giving you the authority. You really didn't need to give me the authority, but I'm giving you the ability to do this. Go down that path. I've seen you flourish and I've seen the changes you made in yourself. And yes, take other women, men, whoever want to see this or do this. I'm going to enable you to do this. So that is the positive side of enabling. He has given me the ability, the authority. He's making it possible for me to work on creating this business, having this platform to speak on, my podcasts, to take other people on this journey with me. Because as I've stated on all my shows, everything that I talk about on here is something that I have gone through in my life. I was an emotional eater. That's an addiction, but I have addiction that runs in my family. My mother, I had a son that had an addiction, and enabling, I enabled my mother because I set boundaries. She broke those boundaries. So everything on my show that I talk about is something that has passionate and been a part of me. And I want to take other people on the journey to break free of these enabling behaviors, because that's exactly what they are. They're enabling behaviors. So I have been provided with devoted husband clients that have supported me and been behind my journey. And that's what I pride myself with my clients, is figuring out what is the first step you need to make. And most of the time, it's this one: changing our enabling beliefs about ourselves, changing the enabling behaviors, because we're so afraid that if we speak up for ourselves because someone speaks down to us, or because we don't like that our husband says this, or our parent says this, or our child is an adult brat and says this to us, and we're afraid inside of us that they're not going to like us or love us, or we could lose our job if it's our boss. We're enabling a behavior. But what I want people to understand is you can enable so much positive out there. When you see someone doing something great, praise them, which will enable them to continue to do it. Because think about that. If you see someone doing a good deed and you say nothing, but if you see someone doing something bad and you say something, what's the difference? A lot of times we don't say something when it's good. But when you do that, you're enabling them to believe that that is a positive behavior. So that is the good part of enabling. And who do you enable in a good way? And like I brought up in the beginning of the show, when your child, whether they have children, whatever stage of life they're in, an adult child, not a child, but they say, hey, I'm going to come home for a little bit because I'm going to raise some money so I can buy a house. And they move in and they ask you, what are the boundaries? What is it I should know moving back into the house? That is a good enabling, because you're setting boundaries, and if you live by them and they respect you in your home. What I have seen a lot with clients is, yeah, but they came home and now there's a mess everywhere. Well, why don't you speak up? Well, they're not going to go anywhere, but it's still your house. It's still respecting yourself. But when you kind of set the boundaries and set the tone for that experience, you're positively enabling your child to say, if I need help, I can come to my parent. They're not going to enable me throughout my life, but they're going to guide me and help me. See, that was the biggest lesson I had to learn, and one of my clients had to learn, is that sometimes when we have that unworthy feelings within ourselves, that we enable those bad behaviors all the time because we're afraid they're not going to love us or like us. But then when we speak up and we set that healthy boundary, and you see the change in the behavior, and then we start acknowledging it, you've done good enabling, because you've changed something that you saw as bad. And you notice they don't dislike you. They still love you and they still like you. See, that was a conversation that I even had with one of my children. They used to really get upset with me about something I would say. And I was like, I'm not going to know how to change until you tell me. You're enabling a bad behavior from me. And then when they told me, and now every time that they say, you know what, that was a great conversation. Thanks, Mom. I'm like, thank you for taking the initiative to kind of change your wording. now they've enabled me to continue to speak in this different light. So that's good enabling. And how many of you out there can sit there and go, you know what, I've done some good enabling. But a lot of times we focus on the bad enabling, but there is good enabling out there. When we speak up and acknowledge and change the trajectory of things in life, we are good enabling. Because when someone told me recently that my husband enabled me, it's different. And taken old Sandee 10 years ago, that might have really sat wrong with me because I didn't acknowledge my enabling can be positive. But now I'm like, you know what? He does enable me because he makes things possible for me. He gives me the authority to be out here networking and public speaking on platforms to help other people understand that they don't have to stay in the same mindset or they don't have to stay stagnant in their life. They can change their life. Well, it is time for our last break. I just got so excited talking about positive enabling because a lot of times all we do is talk about that bad enabling. Let's just say that. Really struggling tonight. But we are going to go on our last break. And I'm excited tonight that you joined me to talk about enabling. And like I say, if you ever want to reach out to me, it's Sandee with 2 E's, Byrd, B-Y-R-D, coach@gmail.com, or Sandee with 2 E's at emotionalelevator.com, or on any social media platform. And if you are listening to me and you like it, or if you even feel this topic is for someone to listen to that you might not have the courage to talk about their enabling, let's tell them to listen to it. Maybe they'll ask the question. So we are going to go to that break, and you're listening to Sandee Byrd on Emotional Elevator on Inspired Choices Network. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Are you living a life of psychological trauma or suffering from an addiction? Are you ready to learn new techniques to elevate your emotions without sustaining or obtaining them from substances that are not good for your mind or body? Then continue to tune into Emotional Elevator with trauma, addiction, life, and spiritual coach, Sandee Byrd, where you will learn techniques to elevate your emotions that don't require a magic pill, food, or impulsive behavior. Listen to Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific, on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is Emotional Elevator with Sandee Byrd. To participate in this program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to sandy@emotionalelevator.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, everyone. We only have a short amount of time left. Tonight I've stumbled. I've enabled this frog in my throat to stay in my throat. But tonight has been all exciting talking about enabling. And that is one of the first topics when I start working with clients is figuring out what are they enabling? What talk are they enabling within themselves? Because they're giving the negative self-talk or some negative self-doubt. They're enabling it to continue. Everyone says, you can't hear me that well tonight, so my mic is way too close to my mouth, and I keep hitting it with my mouth. Anyway, enabling. That is one of the first things that I talk about with my clients is what self-talk are you enabling to continue within yourself? So that's why enabling topic for me tonight was so important, because there is bad enabling, like I've brought up with addiction or with behavior that you are afraid to set boundaries because it's something within you keeps you from doing that. And that's either feeling like they're not going to like you or love you, or if it's your boss and you enable them to talk to you in a way that just burns you up, you're enabling that because you're afraid you're going to lose your job. You're afraid you can't speak up for yourself. That's enabling. Giving into someone who has an addiction, that is, enabling. But you can also have positive enabling, because what I mean by positive or good enabling is when you make things possible with enabling, by making something possible. Like I spoke a little bit about in this half, was the positive of enabling when someone said to me not too long ago, boy, your husband enables you. And I realized in a way he does, because he makes it possible for me to do this work. And he helps, gives me, and he doesn't have to give me the authority. So that is a word that I do not really resonate with, but he gives me the means to be able to help other people work on figuring their next part of their life out. Because as I started talking about in the beginning of the show, and I'm going to end the show with, is as a coach, a self-development coach, a midlife coach, I'm going to announce something next week in my next show talking about grief. My next show is all going to be about grief because I already mentioned it. Wasn't going to talk about it tonight. I did lose my mother-in-law at 100 and a half, but she was also the guiding light for me to realize I wanted to recreate my life in my 40s. And now in my 50s, I want other people to go on this journey with me and work with them to get over the trauma. It's there, but let's recreate who we want to be. Figuring out maybe what your passion and purpose is in life. Figuring out what are your values, not what everybody else's values are that have been imposed on you. Figuring out, too, in this midlife of life, I went from being an empty nester to then taking care of an elderly parent. But now I get to recreate again. I'm evolving again. I'm elevating my emotions again. First, I got to go through some grieving, yes. But at that time, I get to elevate again. And if you're listening to me and you know somebody who wants to go on a journey and who's gone through this, I am the person, because we can go on this journey together and we can work together on recreating who you want to be. Because as I learned from her, I could have 45 years left on this planet, and I want to keep evolving into a different person. I want to be a chameleon. I want to keep evolving, not necessarily to blend in with my territory, but to just evolve. So tonight's show is all about the bad and good of enabling. And there is a lot of bad enabling that we do to ourselves with allowing that negative self-talk, giving it that authority, giving it permission to continue to wear us down, keep us stagnant in life. But then there's that good enabling where we start allowing and making it possible to reprogram our mindset and talk positively to ourselves. So again, thank you for joining me tonight. And if you know anybody who should listen to this enabling or any of my shows, please, please like, comment, share, follow on all platforms, and just keep joining me. But you can also reach out to me at Sandee with those 2 E's, Byrd, B-Y-R-D, coach, I don't know why I'm stumbling, coach at gmail.com. All social media platforms, I'm known as Sandee with those 2 E's, Steenstra, my maiden name, and Byrd, B-Y-R-D. Come over. Let's have these conversations. Let's have a connection conversation where we can connect and just see what can I do to help you elevate your emotions and help you elevate yourself and help you teach yourself how to be a good enabler in life and not one that does not know how to set boundaries and has those negative enabling. So thank you for joining me tonight. This has been a great time tonight talking about enabling. And next week, like I said, I'm going to be going into grief because that is a big topic. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Emotional Elevator Show. Sandee returns Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, start elevating your emotions and stop riding the emotional elevator that is stopping you from living the life you deserve.